Hello there, welcome to the video. I've gotten myself a new lens for my Hasselblad camera, a 250mm lens. And today we are going to head out into the field and try to make some images with that lens. However, I'm certain that some of you have clicked on this video specifically to get some more information about that lens. Therefore, I'm going to leave a little timestamp, both in the video and down in the description. So if you would like to skip ahead to when I share you my thoughts about the lens and give you a little overview of the lens, you can do so. But I do encourage you to stick around for the in the field part, as that is the main purpose of this channel, to share you in the field videos, vlogs of landscape photography where I go out and explore photography. With that said, let's head out into the woodlands. I really like this location. A lot of ferns around. Some of them even turn some colors. Looks awesome. I'm going to see if I can find anything with my Hasselblad here. Make some interesting, like shoot through the ferns towards some subject, some tree or something like that. I am following this small little animal path here, so I'm quite careful so I don't step on too much of the vegetation. Let's see if we can frame anything up here. So I found an image, I found a composition. This is more of a test image than something brilliant. The idea here is shooting through these ferns here, and there's a couple of ferns that has actually changed colors there, like autumnal colors, some yellows and browns and that sort of thing. And I am shooting in black and white today, but that will translate to some different grayscales there. And we have these quite dark backlit trees in the background. Kind of just moving around, find a couple of nice silhouettes there. But the main idea here is to try both like how the framing works, but mostly to judge how the out of focus element renders in the image. So I've shot this at f8, and this lens only goes to f5.6. And do remember it's medium format, so it's almost wide open. It will be quite shallow depth of field there. But something. I did include a small little tree trunk that has fallen in the foreground here. We'll see if it works out, but an interesting and good test shot here. As you probably know by now, I do like my birches. So I found this group of birches here against quite a dark woodlands beyond. And the sun is, I have clear blue skies at that side, so side lighting the trees, creating this incredibly nice contrast that I think will work really well in black and white. Once again, the 250mm, just focusing in on those trees, just the top of trees with the couple of branches going out. There's actually some color changes in the branches as well, with the leaves starting to shift towards yellow. So I do think there will be a nice mixture of grey tones there. Once again, shooting the 250, trying out at f11 today, this time. No foreground elements or anything like that, it's just focusing into these three birches. I was supposed to be heading home now, but I kind of stumbled across this nice little final image here. There's a nice contrast in some trees here, some birches overlooking the gorge. I'm at this gorge on the top of a horse there. The contrast was nice. There was a nice direct sunlight on the trees, and they were framed by a couple of other trees in the foreground that kind of have that little barely effect from the longer focal length. And a small footpath leading your eye into the image. So I do think this could work, and I'm just here trying out the lens. So a nice test image, and I do think it will work a nice lesson image as well. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that little outing with the 250mm and the Hasselblad. How about this lens then? I really liked it. I do enjoy the 250mm focal length. It's about the same field of view as a 135 on your typical 35mm frame, like the full frame. It's tight, but it's not too tight. Lens-wise, I really enjoy this lens. It's a nice size, actually in the smaller size, considering it's a medium format long lens. Weighs about 1 kilo and it actually works handheld quite well. I've only used it on a tripod actually taking pictures, but just holding it, it does feel quite nice. Only thing, and this can be down to me, my hand naturally gravitates towards the shutter speed selector instead of the focusing ring. But it could be only me. Speaking of which, I really enjoyed the knurlings here instead of the normal rubber grips. I prefer the knurlings as they stand the test of time better. Design-wise, there are a couple of interesting things about this. Firstly, on the side here, you are supposed to set the EV value. Like if you do a measuring with the EV, with your spot meter, you get an EV value. Or if you just estimate it, set that with this little lever on the side. That will interlock both the shutter and the aperture. Quite nice, and I don't like it. I usually like to set my aperture and then figure out my shutter speed. So I find that a downside, but it is a smart little idea there. The thing I really like though is there's two small red markings that will move with your aperture. That's really lovely to be able to have that. Usually they're just small lines, and they are on almost all my other cameras except the Rolleiflex actually. Another big benefit with this lens is the focus ring. It is completely 360-degree turn. That means you have super precise focusing. And I do find it quite hard focusing from 5 to 10 meters with most lenses. You get that precise critical focus. Not with this lens, it's really easy to get that precise focusing. The downside to that is it's a bit slower to focus. So for sports photography, stuff like that, I think it would be kind of a downside. But I do mostly landscape work with this camera, so there it will be just perfect. This example, the C version of it, will use a bayonet 50 in the front instead of a threaded for your filters and for your hoods and stuff. And that's a nice system with the bayonet. However, it is Hasselblad specific, so it gets expensive quite fast. Therefore, I've ordered an adapter for the lens so I can use normal filter thread, normal threaded filters on it. Image quality, I think, is really good on this lens. I only put one roll through it with the lens, but what I've seen, it performs well. Read a lot about it being perhaps the worst of the Hasselblad lenses. But then again, it is a Hasselblad lens and will probably be better than most. And it did send it to the moon. Many of the photos taken from the moon are taken with this lens. It's one of 2 lenses they brought up there. And Ansel Adams used it. So I mean, it's good enough for those guys, it's good enough for me. I use a 2003 FCW. What that means is there's a focal plane shutter in this camera. And the lenses designed for this camera don't have a shutter in the lens. However, this has, as it's designed for the 500 series. In the manual for the camera, it says that it actually takes every of the C lenses and CF lenses, as well as the F lenses for the Hasselblad V system. What you do is you have 2 choices. Either use the leaf shutter in the lens or the shutter in the camera. If you wish to use the shutter in the lens, you put the shutter speed selector here on the camera to see. You can lock it on the side if you like. Then you just use the shutter in the lens. 2 downsides to that. Firstly, if you use a longer shutter speed, like 1 second or half a second, make sure to press and keep the shutter depressed throughout the exposure, otherwise you will interrupt it. Secondly, I can't get bulb mode to work, not with the lens. And I suspect it's not possible, because if you wish to use the focal plane shutter, the camera's own shutter, you actually put the lens to B mode, make sure that the flash mode is set to X, and then you can use the shutter in the camera instead, including the bulb mode, so I suspect that's why. That's how that works, and as I can tell, it works well enough. I personally prefer to use the shutter in the camera, due to 2 things. Firstly, I have shutter speed up to 1/2000 of a second, instead of 1/500. Also, you have in between, like half step in the shutter ring. This only has whole stops. And it could be nice to sometimes have like, oh, I don't need 250th of a second, I need somewhere in between 125 and 250. Then you can set that with this shutter ring, which is nice, and it's a benefit of these cameras.